Did you miss out on this week's Yu-Gi-Oh! Headlines? Well, it's time to get you up to speed on last week in Yu-Gi-Oh! What's going on, guys? It's Cimo, and welcome to Last Week in Yu-Gi-Oh! The show where we cover all of the biggest Yu-Gi-Oh! Headlines from the previous week. We have a lot to get into because a lot of stuff happened this last week, but before we get into that, I do have one announcement to make. A lot of you guys keep asking me where I get this shirt that I wear in a lot of my videos. Well, fortunately for you guys, I'm gonna start selling these shirts for you to purchase. So just go ahead and click the link in the description below so you can pick up your Yu-Gi-Oh! Card shirt as soon as possible. I am shipping them worldwide, and I hope you guys get yours before I sell out. But getting into this week's headlines, I think we started this week off with a bang when it came to the Banlist dropping. Now, obviously, the Banlist was supposed to be coming out this week, or relatively soon, because they said that we were going to be getting a Banlist no sooner than November. Now, to be fair, they did technically release it in October, but I guess pretty much that is almost November, so we can give them a little bit of leeway there. It's pretty much on schedule. Now, a lot of people argue that this is an emergency ban list, myself included, and the reason for that is because the only cards to get hit on this Forbidden and Limited list were Gofu, Spiral Quick Fix, Spiral Drone, and Set Rotation. 4 cards that all affect the best deck of the previous format, I should say, which was Spiral. If this was an official TCG ban list, why didn't we get other cards either banned or removed from the list itself? Typically, when we get a list that is kind of moving multiple things around, we'll have stuff go to unlimited from semi-limited, or maybe from limited to semi-limited. It doesn't just affect one deck. Now, obviously, you can make the argument that, you know, Gofu affects multiple decks, and that Set Rotation was an indirect check to make evenly matched a lot more viable, since Set Rotation was kind of the natural hard counter for a lot of decks to play so that they don't get blown out by this card. But at the same time, I'm of the opinion that it was an emergency ban list solely because if you looked at the representation from the last few events, from YCS London and YCS Dallas, this deck was just dominating all over the place and really needed a hit. Now, we're gonna get into some meta results a little bit later because at the time of making this video, the ARG in St. Louis has just concluded, and some very interesting results that we're going to want to discuss a little bit later on. But moving on to our next piece of news, after that huge bombshell dropped from the ban list, we had some Crystal Beast support that was announced in Japan. Now, this is how you do fucking legacy support, because Crystal Bonds is one fucking fantastic piece of legacy support for an archetype that a lot of people are very passionate about. It allows you to add a Crystal Beast card from deck to hand and place a Crystal Beast monster in your spell and trap zone. So not only is it Rhoda, but it also pretty much is engine support as well and helps fuel the deck's plays. This is, if there's any lesson to be learned from this, Konami, if you're gonna make legacy support for more decks, this is how you fucking do it. Don't give us like shit cards that aren't gonna be things that anyone's gonna play. You need to give us damn good cards like this. And I think a lot of players, especially those who have max rarity Crystal Beasts, are gonna be very excited that this card is going to be coming out. Now, moving on from there, we also had the announcement of Legendary Duelists for the TCG. Now, this is the set, for those of you guys who are unfamiliar, that's going to have the new Pegasus cards, the new Thousand Eyes Restrict cards. This is a set also based on Weevil and some brand new Insect cards, as well as Bandit Keith and some Machine type cards. Now, all of these cards are basically legacy support. If you guys remember, I think maybe about a month ago, we might have briefly touched on this when it was announced or released in the OCG. They got stuff like Super Cocoon of Evolution, which is an insanely powerful quick play spell for insect support. There's a lot of interesting cards here, but it's mainly a fan service set and kind of just providing that sentimental value more than actual competitive viability, and that's perfectly okay. I'm always a fan of sets that support kind of, you know, just the overall anime in general, especially when it's kind of paying homage to all of these older cards. It's really cool to see that, and even though these cards never really made an appearance in the anime or anything, I think it's really awesome that they continue to produce sets like this. Now, moving on from that, we also had another brand new card released in the Link of Reins pack, Heavy Metal Foes Electrum. And as pretty much as every week goes by, we get one new card announced. And this is just another one that you can just add up there that's just going to fucking break some deck in some way, shape, or form, because Heavy Metal Foes Electrum is one of the best generic pieces of Pendulum support probably ever printed, like up there with something like Performapal Pendulum Sorcerer or like Luster like it's a really fucking good card. The fact that even though it has a Metal Foes in the name, all of the effects that the card has are pendulum based. It only takes 2 pendulum monsters to make, and it enables so many stupidly good combos for a wide variety of decks. I mean, you've got stuff like Metal Foes, which naturally you'd think it would work in because it has Metal Foes in the name, but more importantly, stuff like Pendulum Magician and Cleefort. Pendulum Magician being the biggest outlier here because this just takes Pendulum Magician over the top and almost into an entirely new tier when it comes to its competitive viability. I'm really excited for this set because if every Link monster we're supposed to be getting in the Link Reins set is as powerful as these cards have been in the past, I mean, we're supposed to be getting so many more Link monsters that it's just gonna be absolutely mind-blowing to see what else they can come up with for legacy support for some of our most favorite and cherished competitive archetypes. Now, next we had the release date for, or excuse me, I guess rather, the announcement of the date for the Extreme Forces sneak peek. The Extreme Forces sneak peek is going to be taking place on January 27th and 28th at your local area that usually hosts your sneak peek. You can check the website. They usually have a detailed list of shops that are going to be hosting sneak peek, but this is going to be really interesting because Extreme Forces is a set that, you know, on paper may not have the most, I guess, to offer in terms of its set value, but it's one of those sets that have some cards that can be very meta defining in terms of how it affects the competitive meta, and I'm really curious to see how a card like Localized Trunade is going to have an effect, and all these other cards as well, and sneak peek is always a really good time, just regardless of the set in general. Everyone's usually in a really positive mood, just having fun, cracking packs, and just having a really good time. Now moving on to the next piece of news, Duel Links, which is something I usually don't cover, but I figured why the hell not, is actually going to be getting a brand new set, Galactic Origin. And again, I just want to briefly touch on this, mainly because, you know, it's pretty much when anything is getting a new set, it's a really big deal. And looking at some of the cards, they're getting cards like Exiled Force and Cosmic Cyclone, and when you look at the Duel Links meta as a whole, you know, I played back when Exiled Force was actually a formidable threat in the game, and with the way the Duel Links meta kind of shapes up, I think Exiled Force is actually a really good card in their meta. Now, Cosmic Cyclone, again, Cosmic Cyclone's so weird, like it's been popping up in the newest structure deck, it's been popping up in the Mega Tins, like Cosmic Cyclone has just been popping up everywhere, but again, it's a very strong card, and even though Duel Links starts at 4,000 life points, it's still a really good card that you're gonna want to have. Both of these are set, I think, at the highest rarity in the set, but overall, it looks like it's going to be a really fun time to kind of see how the Duel Links meta gets shaken up with the introduction of the new set. Now, I did just mention the structure deck, and Cyberse Link structure deck was released this past Thursday and Friday, and that's really cool because we got cards like Trigate Wizard, as well as really good competitive reprints like Cosmic Cyclone, Dimensional Barrier, and then we got some reprints of cards that have never had a reprint like Jester Comfy, which is absolutely amazing. I think these structure decks have been hitting it out of the park in terms of their reprints lately, that I really hope Konami takes notice at the positive feedback that a lot of people are giving them when it comes to these starter and structure decks. It makes competitive staples much more accessible for the competitive audience, and it makes it much easier in terms of a barrier to entry from a price point for casual players to pick up these really powerful cards and allow them to have access to them as well. So good on you, Konami. I'm really happy, and I really look forward to see, you know, what kind of good staples we get in the future when we have stuff like the Wave of Light structure deck and any more structure decks they're going to be printing in the future. I'm really excited for. Now, the biggest piece of news, at least in my personal opinion, was the ARG, which actually just concluded not too long after the time of recording this video, and in the top 16 of the ARG, Spiral was the dominant deck. I believe there were 7 Spiral decks in the top 16, which had a very wide representation overall, but there was a bunch of different decks. There was Trickstar, there was a Lightsworn Infernoid, Burning Abyss was the first place after day 1, shoutouts to Noah Green. There was a wide variety of decks in this top got cut. I think Pendulum Magician and True Draco were in there as well. But the interesting thing about this ARG is that Trickstar ended up taking first place. Now, in a meta where Spiral is supposedly in check, and Trickstar had a very good matchup, you know, pre this new November ban list, the fact that it took first place, a lot of people were still anticipating that Spiral or Pendulum Magician was going to be the best deck, and I know a lot of people sometimes don't put a lot of weight into ARGs, but they are very competitive events. You know, the fact that Trickstar won actually says a lot about the breakdown of this meta, and is kind of going to set a precedent, as well as the regionals coming up this following weekend when it comes to YCS San Diego taking place in 2 weeks. So I'm going to be doing a more detailed meta analysis about this ARG, as well as probably the regionals that took place this past weekend as well, and probably the ones that will be coming up this weekend before YCS San Diego. So be sure to stay tuned for that. So guys, that's it for last week in Yu-Gi-Oh! Before we head out, I did want to mention that I am doing a giveaway for the Cyberse Link structure deck. So if you want to get one of the structure decks, I highly recommend just checking out the link in the description. Maybe you want to give it to a friend, you want to have them start playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Or maybe you can't afford to get one yourself. Either way, it's a contest you're definitely going to want to enter, because who doesn't like free stuff? So guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always. Subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. And if you really found this video informative, consider backing me on Patreon, because just by pledging only $1 a month, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.